The topic given to me is the fast changing face of markets, opportunities for the investors. So before talking about the opportunities for the investors, I would like to dwell a little time on the part of the fast changing face of markets. Here I would like to give you a global view. That apart, I would like to give you and talk about the Indian perspective there also. Basically, what changes the markets world over, if we logically think from the period of 2003, that's where the boom again began after the bust of Catherine Forex scam and 9/11 in USA. Basically, world over, the real estate boom, the commodities boom, I mean to say gold, silver and stock markets boom, they all have a correlation, high correlation, and they all went up. And subsequently, when the bust started happening on the part of real estate in USA, automatically we had found everywhere in all the parts of the world recession catching up. The reason was basically the invention of derivatives by the US-based banks and the investment banks. There the investment banks even were allowed to function the banking functions of raising the money and investing that money in the real estate derivatives. How it has happened, I would like to slightly educate the audience here. Basically, say in a city, there are about lack of borrowers on the part of real estate. They borrowed X amount of money, and that X amount of money was lent by a consortium of banks in that city. Okay. Then this consortium of banks, again at the increased valuation, given that asset to XYZ bank, and that XYZ bank again given at the increased valuation to another ABC bank. Okay. At the higher valuation again, that bank given to other bank. So what happened is, a small value of a lakh of rupees got into a cascading valuation impact of say 100 lakhs over a span of just 2 years. And when the individuals did not have the ability to repay the money to the banks, because in correlation with the rise in the real estate, gold and silver, the per capita income of the individuals did not increase, excepting the guys whoever have exposed in the stock markets and in these speculative activities. That's the reason when the individuals started feeling the what we call heat of the repayments, when the default started, that is where everybody realized. Till then, none of the guys realized. For that, all are culprits. Today we say Modi dominates India, we give so much value to that. But remember, the same Modis, the same S&P, the same Fitch, these are all the international agencies which have rated those banks, which have what we call given these cascading loans which had its impact throughout the world. There, to save the face at the end, that is to say by the time 2008-9, what they started doing is they came out with an exotic option. What Dr. Soundararajan was mentioning was basically exotic option. The exotic option was actually hidden under the guise of hedging, forex hedging. Okay, and in that forex hedging, they started selling it to the overseas banks, banks in Europe, even banks in India, banks in the Asian countries. They were sold by the overseas banks huge amount of exotic options in a way that if you are an exporting company, a banker will come and tell you, hey, you have exports to the tune of 2 crores, but every month at free of cost, I will give you 10 lakhs rupees. Tell me, which exporter will not get tempted to this kind of offerings? There, the exporters used to take. But that is on what underlying, what was the derivative behind that? The derivative was Swiss franc versus the euro versus dollar. There was no Indian currency involved. For the Indian exporters, the requirement was Indian currency, but Indian currency versus the foreign currency. But nowhere that was involved, but this was given as a what we call a sweetener to that guy to attract him to what we call loot his money at a later stage. In that context, what has happened was, from India alone, to the extent of $3 trillion were taken by these exotic options. You might have heard big companies, Muserware, you talk about Hexaware, you talk about exporters from Ludhiana, exporters from Tirupur, sugar mills, Rajastri Sugars, and lot many sugar mills and companies and software companies. Everybody, Ranbaxy itself had exposure to the tune of almost $250 million. Okay, they all lost that money in these exotic options because first month they have given few lakhs rupees to our Indian companies. Second month they said, suddenly the Swiss franc has fallen, so your margin has triggered. You need to bring 5 crores immediately overnight. Okay. Then Swiss franc went on falling because Swiss franc was an illiquid currency basically that is easy to maneuver. So they have maneuvered and brought it down substantially. That is from where they started taking the money in the form of margin calls and liquidation from the Indian companies. And they made the Indian companies lose to the extent of almost $3 trillion. This was the estimate so far made. Okay. From that shock, when the Indian companies are trying to come back by honoring their commitments, by taking that exposure as a long-term loan, converting that as a long-term loan, and they were trying to honor those things. In between, we were caught up with inflation, and we were caught up with balance of payments issues, we were caught up with fiscal deficit, and again we were caught up with high interest rates. And due to inflation, rise in input costs basically for the companies, and then you have fallen net margins for the companies. If you analyze the whole gamut of Indian companies, the top line growth is in tandem, but the bottom line growth has eroded, and even the EBITDA level growth has eroded because the company's costs have substantially increased. And to face those costs, today companies are not in a position because globally today there is no trust on the neighborhood bank for the other bank, and they are not willing to lend. Today we say we have relaxed ECB norms, but for ECBs, who is there to lend from the overseas? Again, you have to tap the Indian banks only. Okay, and Indian banks are also caught up with huge amount of NPAs today, though it may not be coming out because they are rescheduling and they are also giving fresh loans to the companies to keep their balance sheets in tandem. But the problem here is, here also our banks earlier had huge exposure to the real estate, and the real estate prices have crashed. And crashed means in India per se they haven't come down because of the pools and cartels formation, though in abroad and in USA the prices have substantially come down. Buying today a bungalow in New York is much cheaper than buying a flat in Bombay. Okay, that's what the scenario it is. But in India the prices haven't come down, but there are no sales happening. Okay, in that context, the companies are not performing and they are not honoring their commitments to banks also. So the banks are rescheduling the loans and making them what we call a PA, performing asset. For their balance sheets to be good, but this how long it can go. That's the reason the banks are today not in a position to grant higher allocations. I mean to say, do high rate offtake to the corporates, and corporates are badly in the need of money. And one side you don't have a conducive primary market to raise money, and you don't have proper secondary market at this point of time to raise money through say stake offerings, whatever it is, and you have corporates caught up with all the problems from all the sides. So today we can say that India is a self-consumption oriented economy, and our economy grows irrespective of any global happenings. That's not true. That may be true to the extent of our agriculture. That may be true to the extent of what we call the industry to an extent, which has domestic demand basically. But still, majorly if you see, the services sector and the manufacturing sector, which occupies today to the tune of almost 55% of our 25% of our GDP is from agriculture. So around 70-72% it varies of our GDP comes from manufacturing and services sector. So these two sectors are invariably in one way or the other due to one parameter or the other today closely connected with the global happenings. That's the reason whatever happens across the world, our markets are impacted by that, and so to that extent 24/7 we are dependent on the global news flows for the next day's market action on the Indian side. And that is this much of corrupt country, okay? That kind of image it is bringing. You take any what you call scams of the recent past, whether it is 2G or toll, though they are subject matter of debate, but it was done on the basis of progressive accounting. That is to say, you compare the price that it can delay the today's price versus the erstwhile government's policy on the basis of which they were awarded. If we go by that, let me tell you, even the real estate that we sell, that we have sold some 10 years back at lower price, we can use the same precedent given by the Supreme Court and claim higher money from the guy whoever bought us at lower money and say that guy cheated us basically, okay? That kind of confusion is getting created because there is no aggressive stance coming from the government side, and even the individual independent bodies are also taking their own stances, and that is not properly answered by the government officials. That is where again it is damaging the image of this country. So given that scenario, now what are the options available for the investor? Let me tell you, as per our study, till 2014 or earlier, whatever it is, till the next elections happen, whoever may come, okay, whoever may come, till that point of time, we are not going to find any kind of upside in the markets. These markets are going to be in the range of 18,000 to 20,000 only. Sometimes to create feel-good factor, one day it may go up 500, the next day it may go down by 400, or the other day it may go down by just 13 points, something like that. But you don't find any secular overall hike in the markets in the next coming 1 year. Till that point of time, my advice to the investors is keep your monies in fixed return instruments, and the time to reinvest in the markets in the form of bargain hunters at the lowest valuations available in all varieties, basically small, mid and large cap, whatever it is the time after general elections. So at that point of time also, where to invest, what to invest, if you ask me, I feel one needs to have a balanced portfolio. In that portfolio, you give equal priority to small cap, mid cap and large cap stocks, because when the bull run starts, all the stocks will go up, okay? And there, the most beaten down stocks are mid cap and small cap. There are gems in those stocks also. You can buy them, and you can also buy large cap stocks. And sectorally, I feel even the next boom, as per the studies done by even International Monetary Fund and World Bank recently has come out with a study. As per the studies also, the next boom will also be a diversified in a diversified manner, not just restricted to one or two sectors. So there, the basic sectors like say infrastructure, allied engineering segments, and then when the economic condition improves, automobiles will also improve, and when the interest rates comes down, banking stocks may find upliftment, and IT stocks also, I feel to an extent are doing okay, irrespective of the given scenario world over. There also you can find some gems. I'm not naming them, but I'm just mentioning about the sectors. So I feel you guys needs to wait till 2014 or 2013 December, whichever is earlier in terms of general elections. Post that only take any kind of decision in terms of fresh investments. Till that time, stay invested only in fixed return instruments. Thank you for